So last session, what we did was to look at the financial statements of advanced technologies. We looked at the income statement. We learned about the measure of EBIT, EBITDA, and we learned why depreciation and amortization is oftentimes singled out. We looked at the balance sheet, okay, and we learned how to compute for measures like net operating working capital, total operating capital, and investment in total operating capital. Let's have a quick review of what we have discussed so far. We said that working capital is generally considered as the current assets, and the net working capital is simply the difference between your current assets and your current liabilities. Okay. However, we came up with another term, NOWC, which is operating working capital. So if you look at the descriptor here, operating working capital, we're interested to know how much working capital, operating working capital and operating capital was provided to management. Why are we doing this? The end goal is that we would like to assess the assets or the resources provided for operations to management. And we'd like to assess how the management fared in as far as the utilization of the assets, of the resources, of the capital is concerned. Okay, so very quickly, guys, we said that net operating working capital is simply operating current assets minus operating current liabilities. So we looked at the balance sheet and we have here four types of current assets: cash, short-term investments, receivables, and inventories. There's no prepayments, okay? So of these four current assets, three of them will be classified as operating current assets. Cash and cash equivalents, receivables, and inventories form part of our current operating current assets. If there was inventories, it would have been included as part of operating current assets. Take note, short-term investments was not included because this is part of financing. Okay, so for 2020, we just added 10, 371.2, and 615 for the operating current assets for 2020. Likewise, we just copied the formula to get the operating current assets for 2019. Now, for the operating current liabilities, the balance sheet of advanced technologies show here three types of current liabilities: accounts payable, accruals, and notes payable. We learned last time that of these three, only two form part of your operating current liabilities. Notes payable is not included because this is interest bearing, so this is part of financing activity. Okay, so we only added 60 and 140 to get your operating current liability. Okay, therefore, having identified the operating current assets, in this case, this is your cash, this is your receivables and inventory. Okay, and then we looked at the operating current liabilities consisting of your accounts payable and your accruals to get our net operating working capital, which is just the difference between the two. So we did the same for 2019. Okay, and we can see here that management has been investing in working capital from 646 at the beginning of 2020 or at the end of 2019. It ballooned to 796.2. If we compute for the growth rate, so that's 2020 divided by 2019 minus 1. So this is 23%. Okay, so the company has invested additional working capital. The working capital is very important because these are the ones that support the operations of the business. Okay, as you see, guys, operating current assets involve receivables, inventories. So a company, in order to support its target sales, they have to invest in receivables, they have to invest in inventories. Otherwise, they'll not be able to to attain any goal as far as the level of sales they want to have. Okay. Now the next measure is TOC, or total net operating capital. Notice that there's net here, which means that we're using the net plant and equipment. Okay, so it's NOWC plus net plant and equipment. We already have NOWC here. So we just have to add net plant and equipment. Now, by way of a review, guys, when we look at property, plant, and equipment, it can be presented this way. Okay, you have here the property, plant, and equipment at cost. Then you subtract the accumulated depreciation, and then the PPE net. Okay, oftentimes in manufacturing firms, there are different types of PPE. There may be equipment, machinery, land, building, etc. So this is just the cumulated. Okay, this is just the cumulated amount. So usually you'll have here notes to the financial statements enumerating the different types of property, plant, and equipment together with their relevant or specific accumulated depreciation accounts, and then their PPE. So these are just the consolidated. Sometimes you'll just see the PPE net. Okay, just be aware that the PPE net was acquired by from cost less the contra asset, which is accumulated depreciation. Okay. Now the formula for total net operating capital require that we use this one, the net, not the cost. Okay, so be aware of that, guys. See net plant and equipment. So we have the net plant and equipment given in the balance sheet. Okay, so let's take a look at that. Net plant and equipment for 2020 was this is 1 billion because the figures are in millions, and then 817 million for 2019. So there was an increase in, the company was investing also in its fixed assets. Okay, so the formula now for TOC will be just sum up your working capital, operating working capital, and your net plant and equipment. So our total net operating capital, or TOC, for 2020 is 1796, while it was 1516 for 2019. So we can see here that the TOC, let's see its growth rate. That's the current divided by the previous minus 1. That's the growth rate. Let's put it in percentage. So our TOC grew by 18.5%. Okay, how about let's just take a look at this, copy this. So our working capital increased by 23%, our plant and equipment increased by 14.9%, our net PPE. Okay, so we can see here that the company has been investing heavily in its working capital. And that's a good news. That's a good sign, because it signals that the company is foreseeing a greater demand for its product, an expansion of the market. Okay, because they're investing in plant and equipment, and they're also investing in their working capital. So this is a signal that the company foresees greater sales ahead. Okay, so now we have computed now for TOC for 2020 and 2019. Now we computed for these two because we would like to, we need that to compute for the investment in TOC. Okay, we can only compute this if we have the two successive years. Okay, so this is just the increase or decrease in TOC between 2 years. So for 2020, the TOC is 1796. For 2019, it's 1516. Therefore, the company invested in operating capital 279 million or 280 million. Okay, so again, this sends a strong signal that the company foresees a rosier climate ahead. Okay, any questions so far, guys, about these measures? NOWC, TOC, investment in total operating capital. Any questions? Okay, may I see your chat, guys? If clear so far, kung yes, no? Kung yes, paki-chat naman kung yes, kung clear siya so far. Okay, thank you. Okay, salamat guys ha. Thank you for those who have been really participating even through chats like that, guys. Kasi sabi ko nga sa inyo, I really appreciate that kasi I would like to know if important para sa aming mga mentors na naiintindihan kami, no? Naiintindihan ako. Kasi it will be a waste of time if I keep on parroting finance here and then hindi nyo pala nakukuha, no? Baka masyado mabilis yung pag-explain ko. Okay, so that's why I pause once in a while in order to ask you if so far the explanations are clear. Kaya your responses, guys, really mean a lot to me. Kaya thank you so much. Okay, now let's go, guys, to the next, which is computing NIAT and NOPAT. What's the difference between net income after tax and net operating profit after tax? Actually, guys, yung NIAT, we don't need to recompute that because it's already here. Okay, in the income statement, we already have here. So this is actually your, so let me just qualify this. This is actually your earnings after tax, EAT, earnings after tax, or NIAT, net income after tax. So this one, the net income, because we have deducted tax. So it's called net income after tax. So we already have this net income after tax at 137.1. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this. Okay. Copy this below. Okay. First we have EBIT. So let me just link it to our EBIT above here. EBIT is earnings before interest and taxes. We discussed this before, guys, right? Earnings before interest and taxes. We discussed this before, and we said that this is just the same as your operating income. This is your operating income. Why is this called your operating income or operating profit? Okay, because how do we arrive at your EBIT? We have your sales, and then we subtract all your operating costs. In this case, except depreciation and amortization, but we also deducted that later on, this one. And depreciation and amortization form part of your operating cost. So all of these, guys, 2616 plus 100, they form part of your operating costs. Okay, so when you subtract from net sales, the operating cost, you have here your EBIT or your operating income or operating profit. Okay. And then you subtract now our financing charges like interest expense. Okay, we subtract first all our operating expenses, and then that's the time after which we subtract our interest or financing expense, which is interest. Okay, so let's just copy that, guys. So our interest is we're given, it's at 88. Okay. So our earnings before tax will simply be the difference between this and our tax. Okay, let me just increase this by 1 decimal place to be consistent with the financial statements. And our tax will be equal to the taxable base, which is the earnings before tax multiplied by the, remember that we use tax rate. Okay, we gave the name tax rate to our 30%. So that's 59. Okay. So our net income after tax is just the difference between the two. Okay, 137.1, which is the same as your net income after tax above. Okay, we didn't. There's nothing new that we computed there. It's just the same. Now, how about NOPAT? This is net operating profit after tax. It's important, guys, to compute for operating profit after tax because we would like to assess operations or management as far as regards their performance. Okay, so we first start with EBIT. Okay, so let me just copy EBIT here. Okay. Okay. And then, NOPAT, guys, operating profit after tax, we'd like to, we do not charge interest to arrive at the NOPAT. Why? Because interest expense is a function of finance. Okay, so it will be unfair, guys, to charge operations with a cost where they have no control over. Okay, for example, guys, let's assume that let's say finance borrowed 10,000 million, so that's 10 billion, and this is an interest of 10%. Okay, so the interest is it's equal to 1,000. Okay, the interest is 1,000. Now, if the interest expense was 1,000, take note that if we subtract 1,000 here, it wipes out immediately the operating profit. Kasi kung 1,000 to, guys, wala na, no? Kung 1,000 siya, wala na, negative na kagad yung earnings before tax. And the problem is, operations does not have any control over this. Okay, kasi finance yung responsible dito eh. Okay, so in NOPAT, guys, what we do is we assume that there's no debt. Okay, we do not charge. There is debt, guys. The company used debt, and it's shown in the interest expense. However, we do not charge operations with the interest expense precisely because they do not have control over that. Okay, as a matter of fact, guys, the example I just gave, if finance borrowed, let's say 10 billion at 10% interest, 10% interest rate, the interest would have been 1,000 per year. So if we carry this here, then as I said a while ago, that already wipes out the operating income of the company. Okay, so we will not charge operations with the interest expense. Therefore, our earnings before tax will simply be equal to your EBIT. Okay, EBIT will be equal to earnings before tax. So the tax will now be based on the earnings before tax, or your EBIT, since they're the same, times the tax rate. Okay, times the tax rate, Control Enter. So it's 85.1. Therefore, our NOPAT is 198.7. So what do we see here, guys? What do we see here? Will operations be happier with this? Yes, because now they're now going to be evaluated based on this and not based on this. If we were operations, we'll be happier being evaluated based on what the 198.7 that we generated vis-a-vis 137.1, di ba? Kasi mas malaki, no? So if the EBIT, guys, is positive, then the NOPAT will always be greater than the NIAT. Okay? If it's positive, no? Okay, so and we would want, guys, that if we're operations, if we're part of the, let's say, the management, we would want this. Okay? Now, what's the difference between the NOPAT and NIAT? Let's take a look at the difference. Okay, so it's not 88. Okay, I thought 88 would be the difference because we did not charge interest expense in the amount of 88 to NOPAT, but it's only 61.6. Now, why is that? Now that's answered, guys, by the tax. Okay, if you take a look, if we get the difference between the tax for net income after tax and NOPAT, the tax for NOPAT is higher by 26.4 million. Now, why is that so? We learned, guys, before that the use of interest, okay, provides the company with tax savings. Okay, kasi we can deduct interest from your operating income in order to reduce your earnings before tax. So in this case, guys, since wala tayong interest dito, hindi natin sinarge sa operations, then tataas yung natin, yung tax natin as compared to this one. Okay? So the difference between NOPAT and NIAT is not 88. It's not 88, guys. So let me just illustrate that by let me just, okay. So we have your interest, no? This is your interest expense. And the amount to the tune of 88. 88.0. Okay. So this will not be the difference between NOPAT and NIAT. Rather, the difference will be smaller by way of the tax savings. And how much is the tax savings? The tax savings, guys, is the tax rate, okay? It's based on the tax rate. So in this case, the tax rate is equal to 30%, right? So there will be tax savings on the interest because of the use of the debt. No? Okay, so 30%, multiply that by 88. Okay. So what will remain, guys, is just 1 minus tax rate. Okay, 1 minus tax rate is 1 minus 30%. So that's only 70%. Okay, so 70% times 88, that will be the difference between NOPAT and NIAT. Okay, it's only 70%, not the whole 100%, because the 30% goes to tax savings. Okay, so just to clarify this, so we have here, okay, 88. Let me just write it here. 88. Okay, and then 30% of that, and then 70% of that. Okay. Okay, let me move this here. Okay, so I'm just going to multiply this is equal to this. I'm going to fix this multiplied by 30%. Okay, so that's where we got, guys, 26.4. Okay, so what does this imply? If we know the interest expense, guys, we will know how much NOPAT will be higher than NIAT by multiplying the interest expense times 1 minus the tax rate, whatever the tax rate is. Okay, the tax savings will be the interest expense multiplied by the whatever the tax rate is. Okay, the difference between NOPAT and NIAT will be interest expense times 1 minus the tax rate. Okay, so we can see here, guys, that indeed NOPAT is higher than net income after tax, not by the amount of the interest, but rather by 1 minus tax rate times the interest expense. Okay, so let me pause for a while, guys. Is there any question, guys, about this? Paki-chat nga kung clear so far. Clear so far ba? Okay, I hope, guys, to get the response of a majority of you. Sana mga 25, 20 ang mag-respond, guys. So far, wala pa tayong 1/3. I just want to know, guys, to be informed if we're okay so far. Otherwise, guys, if you want me to repeat a particular portion here, then gladly, guys, I'll do that. Okay, let's wait for a few more responses. Thank you so much for those of you who are responding. Okay, only 50% pa lang tayo. So I'll just give a few more seconds, no? So just maybe some of you are still typing, copying the notes. Let me give you some time to work on this. Okay, how about the rest, guys? May mga questions ba? Check. Darius, okay, yes, clear, thank you. LG, thank you. Okay. Looks like okay naman, ano? Guys, thank you once again for your responses. I really appreciate that. Okay, so looks like clear naman so far, no? So quickly review lang natin, guys, net income after tax and NOPAT are two different things, no? Because net income after tax includes all the cost, operating costs and financing costs. For NOPAT, guys, as the name suggests, operating profit to. So we're not including the financing cost, which comes in the form of the interest expense. So tinanggal natin si interest expense, we did not include it in our computation. However, the difference between NIAT and NOPAT is not the interest expense. The difference between them, rather, is only the interest expense multiplied by 1 minus whatever the tax rate is. So if the tax rate is 35%, then the difference will only be the interest expense times 1 minus 35%. Why? Because the 35% goes into the tax savings provided by the use of debt, the leveraging factor. Okay, so we can directly compute for NOPAT. Okay, so for NOPAT, the formula is straightforward. It's EBIT. Okay, so EBIT is here, earnings before interest and taxes. Okay, we can copy this to the right for 2019. Then the tax rate is simply, okay, the tax rate is, of course, it's 30%. Copy this to the right. And then, therefore, the NOPAT is simply your EBIT times 1 minus your tax rate. Okay, or you can just type here 1 minus tax rate. There. So we said that we compute for the NOPAT by from the EBIT. Okay, then we remove the tax. Okay. So in fact, we were able to show this a while ago, the 198.7. Okay, so that's how we compute for our NOPAT. Now, the NOPAT will be used later on. Okay, we're going to assess the company's performance based on the operating profit after tax. All right. Now we go to the concept of free cash flow. Okay, as the name suggests, it's free. Free for what? The reason why it's called free cash flow is because it's free for distribution to investors. So let's define this. Free cash flow is, let me copy the font here. Okay, free cash flow is the cash flow available for distribution to moment guys, dali lang 1 minute. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, free cash flow is the cash flow available for distribution to investors after deducting cash flow requirements for operations. So that's the definition of free cash flow. Okay, it's cash flow available for distribution. To whom? To investors. And we defined, if you recall guys, investors, we defined investors to be either creditors or shareholders. Okay, so these are our investors, creditors or shareholders. And we say that the free cash flow is the cash flow available to distribute to creditors and shareholders. after we have deducted cash flow requirements for operations. So can we identify let's identify 5 uses of free cash flow based on the definition that we have on the right side here. Okay, can you identify any volunteer? What are possible uses of free cash flow? Anyone? I'll give you time to think, guys. Just take note that free cash flow is used for distribution to investors, creditors, or shareholders. Yes, Mikhail?
Sir, interest to debt holders.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get you.
Paying interest to debt holders po, sir.
Yes, okay. Paying interest to creditors. Okay, so yeah, you're correct. Thank you, Mikhail. So it's used for payment of interest. Okay, payment of interest to creditors. You're correct. I think, let's see. I think Kyla was also raising her hand a while ago. Yes, Kyla? Would you like to add on to this? Okay, sige. Si Angel?
Sir, paying dividends to shareholders po.
Correct. Correct. Thank you, Angel. So payment or distribution of dividends to shareholders. Okay. Angel, you'd like to answer one more time? Okay. Anyone else, guys? Ano pa ba?
Sir, repaying debt po.
Repaying debt. What form? So we already identified interest. How do you call that? Payment of what? Payment of letter P, guys. We have a name for that. If San Miguel Corporation issues a bond worth 100 million, 10%, for example, interest rate of 10% for 10 years, then they're going to pay the interest every year. And then at the end of the period, what are they going to pay? Payment of the, what do we call the 100 million that San Miguel borrowed? It's called the, it's called the principal, guys. No? Payment of the principal. Okay, what else, guys? We have 2 others. Two other uses of free cash flow. Anyone? Any suggestions, guys? Free cash flow can be used to for the payment of interest to creditors, payment of principal, distribution of dividends to shareholders. Any other answer, guys? Can be used also to, we also discussed this before, and free cash flow can be used to buy back shares and stocks. Okay? This is for your, this is called your treasury shares or treasury stock. Okay, so the company can buy back the shares of stock owned by the shareholders, and we said there's a reason for that. Okay, anything else, guys? One more. Okay, free cash flow can also be used to kasi dito after deducting cash flow requirements for operations, then of course free cash flow can also be used to for investment in non-operating assets. Okay. Kasi ito for operations to is operating assets to. Okay, so these are the five major uses of free cash flow. Now it's easy to compute for free cash flow. Okay, from the NOPAT, we just subtract how much was invested in operating capital to be consistent with the definition. Okay, the definition says free cash flow is cash flow available for distribution to investors after deducting cash flow requirements for operations. If you take a look at the company's capital requirements, so here we specified that in 2019, at the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020, it had operating capital of 1516. At the end of 2020, it had 1796. Okay, therefore it needed 798.79, around 280 million investment in operating capital. So this is what was needed in order to additional investment in operating capital. So that's what defines this one, deducting cash flow requirements for operations. Okay, so let's compute for the the free cash flow for 2020. So we start with NOPAT. Let me just get it from here. Our NOPAT is for 2020, it's 198.7, right? Oh, here, let me just get it here. 198.7. Okay. And then, what was the net investment in TOC? From at the beginning of the period, it was 1516. At the end of the period, it was 1796 operating capital. Then the investment was 279.8. So that was the one invested in operating capital for the year. Therefore, our free cash flow is equal to, okay, so let me just format this. Okay, our free cash flow was negative 81.8. Okay, so that begs the question, guys, is a negative free cash flow good or bad for the company? Let me pose this question to you guys. What's your answer to this? We have here the company, the company's free cash flow is negative 81.1. Okay, is this good or bad? What's your take on that? Any comments? Okay, Angel, yes, not bad. Why? Could you comment on that? Angel, why did you say not bad? Anyone, guys, who has an opinion about this? Is a negative free cash flow good or bad for the company? Would you like to unmute yourself, Angel? New company po always spend cash. New company ba siya? No? We're not sure if this is a new company. No? We're not told that Advanced Technologies is a new company. So we can't anyone guys would like to answer this negative free cash? You can unmute yourself. Kasi importante yung malaman natin yan, no? Negative free cash flow. Pag negative free cash flow ba, bad kagad yun? Anyone would like to volunteer and answer? Okay, no answer, guys? Okay, so in order to answer this, guys, tingnan natin components ng free cash flow. Ano ba yung components niya? Dadalawa lang naman yan, guys. So this is easy to decipher. Okay, no PAT, net investment in TOC. Okay, can no PAT be negative, guys? Paki-chat nga please kung yes or no. Is it possible for no PAT based on the formula? Can no PAT be negative? Yes or no, please? Can no PAT be negative? Can net operating profit after tax be negative? Hello guys, tingnan nyo lang yung formula natin. Tingnan nyo, makukuha niyo yan, guys. Pwede ba maging negative yung yung no PAT? Arithmetic lang yan, guys, no? So it's very easy to answer that question. Kindly chat please kung pwede maging negative yung no PAT. Pwede ba? Yes or no? Okay, let's wait for others to answer. 2 pa lang, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sige, tingnan natin ha. What's your answer? So the answer, guys, is yes. Yes, pwede. Pwede maging negative yung no PAT. Bakit? Paano ba nakukompute yung no PAT? Di ba EBIT lang yan times 1 minus tax rate? Ano ba yung EBIT? So we go back here, guys. EBIT. Earnings before interest and taxes. Okay. How do you arrive at the operating income? Ang EBIT kasi operating income. Pwede ba yung operating cost natin mas mataas kaysa sa net sales? Yes, of course, guys. Pwede. Net sales natin 3,000. Ang lahat ng operating cost natin 3,500. Eh di negative na yung EBIT natin, di ba? So pwede, guys, EBIT can be negative. And if EBIT is negative, guys, therefore, okay, so dapat, guys, maintindihan natin yung flow ng natin, ha? If EBIT is negative, can no PAT be negative? Definitely, guys, kung negative na to, bawasan natin ng 1 minus tax rate, negative na rin yung no PAT. Okay? So I hope that's clear, guys. Balikan natin yung income statement natin, no? Ang EBIT natin is your operating income. How do you arrive at the operating income? Sales, less lahat ng cost. Lahat ng operating cost, guys, mina-minus natin. So kunyari ang sales natin 1,000. Operating cost natin, lahat ng operating cost natin is 1,200. Eh di negative na yung EBIT natin, guys. Diba? EBIT natin negative na. Okay? Kung negative yung EBIT natin, negative na rin yung NOPAT natin. Diba? Kasi this is equal to this minus this. Oh, yeah, negative 200 na. Ang tax rate, sabi natin ang tax rate is Tax rate is 30%. Oh. Okay. How do you now compute for your NOPAT? NOPAT is equal to your EBIT, okay, times 1 minus the tax rate. Yan. The negative si NOPAT, guys. Okay? So I hope clear yun, guys, no? Yung mga individual components na to, EBIT can be negative. Okay? So if EBIT can be negative, then NOPAT can be negative. Okay? Pag negative na to, negative na kagad si NOPAT kasi babawasan lang natin ng 1 minus tax rate yan. Okay? So balik tayo sa question of free cash flow natin. So if the negative cash flow is attributable to a negative NOPAT, kasi guys, kung negative na to, no? Kung negative na to, ibig sabihin yan, possibly ng negative yung free cash flow natin. Okay? Unless negative na to, tapos i-minus pa natin to. I-minus pa natin yung net investment in operating capital. So in order to answer the question, is negative free cash flow good or bad for the company? Tignan natin yung mga components nila. If the negative free cash flow is attributable to a low NOPAT, a negative NOPAT, then bad yung negative free cash flow na yan. Bad yung negative free cash flow. Kasi it's attributable to a negative NOPAT. Now, in our case, what's our NOPAT? Tignan natin, ano ba yung NOPAT natin? I-trace back natin sa EBIT natin again. EBIT natin, guys, is 283.8. In fact, it increased compared to 2019, 263. So, ang EBIT ng company, 283 million. Okay, they were able to, their sales was more than enough to cover the operating costs, di ba? Kasi ang sales natin, sige, pakita lang natin 3,000. Kaya ang operating cost natin is the sum of 2,616 at saka yung 100. Ayan yung total operating cost natin. Ang EBIT natin, 283.8. Yun. Diba? Right? So, here we can see that their sales was more than enough to cover the operating cost. In fact, nag-increase siya nung 2019, it was 263. And it increased to 283.8. No? Okay? Of course, it's best also to benchmark this against the direct competitor. No? Kamusta yung direct competitor? Magkano naman yung sales nila? Magkano yung operating cost? Magkano yung EBIT nila? But just from this, guys, we can say that the company was able to generate enough sales to cover their operating expenses. No? Ang NOPAT natin is 198.7. It increased. There was even an increase relative to 2019. Okay? So relatively, guys, okay naman yung NOPAT natin. Okay? So saan ang galing, guys, yung negative free cash flow? The negative free cash flow came from this one, yung net investment in TOC. So okay tong NOPAT natin. Okay? By the way, guys, I forgot. Anyone here who does not understand Filipino? Was it in this section? Paki-chat nga, guys, if you understand Filipino. Kung yes, guys. Kindly, please. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anyone here who does not understand Filipino? Okay, so I assume it's not in this section. I'm sorry for speaking in Filipino because sometimes if I want to drive home a point, I tend to speak in Filipino so that it's more forceful. Okay, now, so where did the negative free cash flow came from? It came from the net investment in TOC. Okay, let's study this, guys. What's the net investment in TOC? The net investment in TOC came from your operating current assets and let's pick it from here. Your net operating working capital and your net plant and equipment. Okay, we discussed this a while ago. We said that the company has been investing in its working capital. A 23% increase in its operating working capital, 14.9% increase in its property, plant, and equipment. Total 18.5% increase in its operating capital. So as I said a while ago, this is a signal that the company thinks that the industry dynamics seems to be robust, seems to be favorable. Kasi nag-i-invest sila ng working capital at saka ng property, plant, and equipment, no? In fact, an increase of 18.5% in its total operating capital. Okay, that's why, sabi nga natin, the investment in TOC is around 280 million. Okay, now is this good or bad? Okay, actually, guys, this is good. Because the company, as I said a while ago, it seems to be sending a signal that everything seems to be okay and that they're poised to let's say, maybe grab market share the it's a signal that the industry is expanding, market is expanding, the demand for their product is expanding. And that can be seen even in the increase in sales, from 2850 to 3 billion. So everything seems to be working well for the company, even with this signal that they increased their investment in operating capital of 280. Okay, therefore, guys, we say that this is a good sign. So the negative here, guys, okay, this is not a bad negative free cash flow, because this was caused by the company's perception that the market condition will be better in the next few years. So is the negative free cash flow good or bad for the company? It depends. In this case, it seems that the negative free cash flow, which is attributable to a high investment in operating capital, seems to indicate that the market conditions will be favorable for the company in the next future. And besides, the NOPAT seems to be okay. So they were able to cover their operating costs. Okay? And in fact, nag-increase nga no yung ano nila, yung operating profit nila from 184 to 198.7. So let's take a look at the increase. So their operating profit increased by almost 8%. No? They're around 7.9%. That was the increase in operating profit. Okay, so I hope that's clear, guys. As to the question, is negative free cash flow good or bad for the company? It takes layers of analysis. But since there are only two items here, so we will have to dig deeper and see how was NOPAT of the company. And secondly, how was the net investment in TOC? Now, does it necessarily mean, guys, that a positive free cash flow is always good? Again, guys, not necessarily. Okay, because let's say, guys, that the NOPAT, let's say, is only low, 10. Okay, compared to the NOPAT of the competitor, which let's say it's in the hundreds, the NOPAT of the company is low at 10. And then investment in TOC, let's say it's 0. So you have here a free cash flow that's positive 10. However, take note that the company did not even increase its capacity to support their future sales. There was no increase in as far as investment in operating capital is concerned. So that's a great concern, guys. In this case, even if the free cash flow is positive, then that does not necessarily mean that as far as the free cash flow is concerned, it's okay for the company. Okay, so I hope this is very clear, guys. As far as the analysis of free cash flow is concerned, okay, we will have to do some let's say different analysis of the components of free cash flow. Okay, so far, guys, kindly chat if clear yung discussion natin sa free cash flow, please. Again, I'd appreciate any feedback from you. If the free cash flow discussion, negative ba, bad, or not automatically, guys, no? Pag positive ba, good, not automatically also. We have to look at the layers that's used in computing for free cash flow. So take a look at NOPAT, take a look at net investment in TOC. Okay, is that clear, guys? Kindly chat, please, kung clear siya. Okay, I'll wait for the others to respond. Okay, don't worry, guys. You can review this video. I'm going to post it as usual. Pinopost ko naman yung video natin. Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you. Sana all, guys, no? Sana talaga all. Sana lahat nagre-respond. Okay, so let's go here, guys. I'm budgeting the time, okay, because our goal is to finish everything up to row 143. We can do this. All right. So let's now look at ROIC. We have been asking ourselves, is management able to value for shareholders? We have been asking this question. Is management able to create value for shareholders? In order to do that, to answer that, guys, we need some metrics. We need to have some metrics. And there are some metrics that we can use in order to answer this question. So let's take a look at some metrics that we can use to answer this question. One metric, guys, is ROIC, return on invested capital. Another metric is MVA, and another metric is EVA. So these three measures, guys, we're going to discuss now. In order to answer this question, is management able to create value for the shareholders based on the financial statements? Okay. The second one, guys, there was a discussion of this in your text, actually of this one also. So I hope you're reading the text, guys. By next week or next week, we'll already conclude our discussion on chapter 28, and we'll have already our short quiz. Okay, so now all of these, guys, are consistent. When I say consistent, if one measure says that management was able to create value, then so will the other measures. Okay, they will agree with each other. Okay, if one measure says value was not created, rather value was destroyed. Okay, value was destroyed value for shareholders, then whether it's ROIC, MVA, or EVA, it will reflect the same answer. Okay, so let's go first to ROIC. Okay, in order to understand ROIC, we need to understand the story behind. So may kwento to, no? Okay, ano yung kwento na to? Okay, so let's take a look at this. Noong January 1, guys, January 1, 2020, management was given capital, no? They were given operating capital. In fact, ang tawag natin doon, TOC, total operating capital. How much was total operating capital at the beginning of the year, guys? Can somebody please answer? Unmute na lang, please. How much was operating capital at the beginning of the year? Hello, guys. How much was total operating capital at the beginning of the year? Andiyan yan, nakita na natin yan kanina. Hello? Somebody answer, please. Magkano yung total operating capital at the beginning of the year, January 1, 2020? Okay, ito guys, 15-16. End ng 2019 is the beginning of 2020. Ito, end of the year na to, di ba? December 31 na to eh. Okay? So, how much was operating capital given to management? They were given 15-16.4. Okay, take note, ang sabi ko, di ba? Beginning of the year. 15-16.4. Okay? So, beginning yan guys, January 1. Noong December 31, okay, naging 1796 na yan. Okay? End of the year na. Okay? Ang gagamitin natin ngayon guys, yung beginning of the year. Okay. Babalik ako sa kwento ko ha. Okay. Kunwari part of management tayo. Yung January 1, binigyan tayo ng operating capital worth 1516. Question, anong ginawa natin sa capital na yan? Anong ginawa natin? Based on the reports, based on the computations guys, nakapag-generate naman sila ng operating profit. Okay. Magkano yung operating profit na na-generate natin tayong management for advanced technologies? Can the answer please? Magkano yung operating profit na na-generate natin using this 1516.4 na capital? Okay? Kasi guys, we're doing this kasi para mas naiintindihan natin kung ano yung mga ratios na mini-measure natin. Kasi otherwise, kung just the formula without us appreciating yung context nito, then sayang lang. No? Okay, one last time guys, January 1, 2020, we were given capital ng investors amounting to 1516.4. Okay, anong ginawa natin to sa capital na to? Nakapag-generate ba tayo ng operating profit for 2020? Kasi we're taking a look at the whole period here from the whole of 2020. Ilang operating profit ang na-generate natin? Anyone please? Anyone please guys? Nakapag-generate ba tayo ng profit? Okay, yes. Tama. Yan, tama. You're correct guys. Yan. Andiyan sa ano natin. Tingnan natin yung mga figures natin. So ang operating profit natin na na-generate is 280 or 279.6, di ba? So this was the operating profit na na-generate natin. 279.6 million. Okay? Using what? Using the capital provided to us, 1516.4. Ito. Now, ang ginagamit natin guys, yung beginning ha. Okay? Hindi yung ending. Kasi ito sa dulo na to no? Yung 1796. So always, importante guys, beginning capital ang tinitingnan natin. No? Okay. For the last time guys, management was given 1516 or that this is 1516 million. That's actually 1.5 billion pesos of capital. Okay? Anong ginawa nila sa capital na to? Nakapag-generate sila ng profit na 79 operating profit, no? Hindi net income. No PAT to 279.6. Question, is this good or bad? Okay, we can now use the ratio, no? Ang ratio natin yung ROIC. Kasi ang ratio natin is simply yung NOPAT na generate natin divided by the beginning capital. Okay, so let me get the NOPAT here. Our NOPAT is here, 198.7. Okay. Tama ba, 198.7? Ay, mali, guys. But hindi, sorry, mali. Hindi, ang NOPAT natin hindi 279.6. Mali na naman tayo dito. Okay, hindi ko kasi tininan eh. No, hindi to 279.6 guys. Hindi ito yung profit natin. Ano yung investment yan guys sa TOC? Yung 279.6. Ang profit natin ito, yung NOPAT ito guys, andi dito na. Just take a look at the figures kasi na-compute natin yan eh. Okay? Yun ang na-generate natin na profit, 198.7. Okay? Mali yung figures na nakukuha natin. No? Okay, ulitin natin guys ha, ulitin natin yung kwento. Okay. Yung management guys at the beginning of the year, at their disposal is capital. Binigyan sila ng operating capital. Magkano yung operating capital nila na binigay sa kanila? Ang binigay na operating capital sa kanila, tingnan natin yung TOC nila. No? Okay, itong 1790 na to, at the end of 2020 na yan, December 31 na yan. Ang pinag-uusapan natin, sa simula ng November, sa simula ng 2020, magkano? Ito yon. Itong 1516.4. Kasi, ano to December 31, 2019, which is the same as January 1, 2020. Okay? Pause nga muna tayo, guys. So, naiintindihan ba natin itong 1516.4? Okay, pakichat naman kung yes. So, yung 1516.4 na to, ito yung capital na binigay sa management ng investors. Total operating capital at the start of 2020. Okay, pakichat na muna guys kung yes, kung clear yan. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for your response. No? Okay, salamat ha. Okay, good. So binigyan tayo ng capital, let's assume na part tayo ng management, no? Binigyan tayo ng capital worth 1516.4 at the beginning of 2020. Okay. Make no mistake guys, ito at the end na to 17.1796. So ito 'yon, no? Itong 1516. Now, ano ginawa natin sa capital? Nag-generate tayo ng profit for the whole year. Magkano yung operating profit natin? 198.7 yung NOPAT natin, net operating profit after tax. Hindi 297. Ang 279 guys, yan yung nadagdag na capital for operating capital nung buong 2020. Okay? Nagsimula sa 1516, naging 1796, nadagdagan tayo ng operating capital na 279.8. Hindi yan yung profit natin, hindi yan yung operating profit natin. Ang operating profit natin ito, 198.7. Okay? So nakapag-generate tayo ng operating profit na 198.7. Okay. Question, okay ba yan? Binigyan tayo ng capital na 1516.4. Ang profit, operating profit na na-generate natin, 198.7. Sige, tingnan natin yung ratio, guys. Okay? So ang profit natin, operating profit, 198.7. Ang beginning capital natin is 1516.4. Okay, yan ang beginning capital natin. Okay. Therefore, we can now compute for ROIC. It's equal to yung profit natin divided by the beginning capital. So that's 13.1%. Anong ibig sabihin ng 13.1% na yan, na ROIC? Ang ibig sabihin niyan, guys, okay, ROIC is 13.1%, or that's also equal to 0.13, no? Ibig sabihin niyan, guys, gawin natin, i-denominator natin yung 1. Ibig sabihin na dito, it means that for every 1 peso of operating capital provided to management, they were able to generate an operating profit of 0.13. Okay, that's what that means, no? Ang ROIC natin is 13.1%, meaning for every peso of capital, operating capital given to management, we were able to generate 13 centavos or 0.13 pesos of operating profit. Okay, question, is this good or bad? So that's always the case, no? Is this good or bad? So in order to answer that, guys, we compare that with the WACC. Okay? We have to compare ROIC with the weighted average cost of capital. Okay? So was management able to create value? Magkano ba yung cost pagkuha ng capital? Given sa atin yan, 8% to. Okay? This is 8%. Magkano yung operating profit na na-generate nila per peso of invested capital? 13.1%. Okay. Since ROIC is greater than WACC, then value was created. So there was value creation. Okay? So that's the story behind this, no? Ginagamit natin yung ROIC to determine if the company was able to create value for the shareholders. And how do we do that? We compute for the ROIC by getting the operating profit after tax for the whole year and then dividing it by how much was capital provided to management starting at the beginning of the year. Okay. Since we were able to generate 13.1%, which means for every 1 peso of operating capital given to management, the company was able to generate 13 centavos of operating profit. Okay, good or bad yun? Okay yun. Kasi guys, ang cost ng pagkuha ng capital is 8%. Ang ROIC natin, 13.1%. Okay? So that's the story behind ROIC. Okay? So in the interest of time, guys, itutuloy ko na to, no? Okay. So another measure used is MVA, market value added. Ano naman yung market value added? in order to understand market value added, guys, we need to compute for the market value, or call it market capitalization. Okay. How do we compute for market capitalization? Okay. Kailangan alam natin magkano ba yung stock price ngayon. At saka ilang shares ba yung issued ng company. Okay, so let's take a look at these givens, no? Given sa atin ang stock price daw 65 pesos per share. Tapos ang number of shares in thousands is 15,000. May problema tayo, guys, no? Kasi ang data natin, ang balance sheet natin and income statement, it is in millions, no? Tapos ang shares natin in thousands. So kailangan ma-convert natin to, no? How much is this in millions? Okay? Kung 15,000 siya in thousands, then this should be equal to 15,000 divided by 1,000 to convert this into millions. Okay? So I hope you got the math here, guys. Simpleng math lang naman to. Kasi in thousands to eh. Ito. Dapat in millions ang gagamitin natin. So paano natin gagawin in millions yan? I-divide natin ng 1,000. Kasi thousands muna tapos millions. Okay? So we have 15 millions. In fact, nakasabi dito, assume that there were 15 million shares outstanding. Nakasabi na yan. Tapos, may correction yata tayo dito na ito, guys. No? Kindly correct this, yung row 42. Dapat hindi 50 million shares, so dapat 5 million shares. Okay, so paki-correct na lang, no? 5 million shares. Okay, so let's now compute for the MVA. So alam natin stock price which is at 65. Okay? Alam din natin yung number of shares, 15 million. So dapat in million to ha. Just to be consistent kasi millions in millions to, no? 15 million shares. Okay. Therefore, we have to insert something here. Insert natin to, guys. We can now compute for our market value, no? Market value natin or market capitalization is equal to what? Magkano kaya market capitalization natin? Well, it's simply multiplying the stock price times the number of shares outstanding. Kasi 15 million shares yan, magkano yung bawat isang stock? Stock daw ngayon, 65 pesos. So all in all, guys, ang market capitalization ng company is 975 million. So in the market, no? In the market, magkano yung common equity? 975 million. I-compare natin yan sa book value. Magkano yung common equity kung titingnan natin yung balance sheet? Akit tayo ng balance sheet, no? Let's go up to the balance sheet. Okay, here. Sa balance sheet, guys, andito yung value ng common stock, andito yung value ng retained earnings. Ang total value ng equity is 940. So this was just added, no? 940. Okay, enter natin. Okay. So we can now compare the market capitalization and the book value. Ang difference yan, guys, will be your this minus this. That is your market value. Market value added. Okay? So what's value created for the shareholders? Ano decision rule natin dyan? Ang decision rule natin dyan, guys, is if the MVA, market value added, is greater than 0, then you have value creation. Yan. Okay, since market value added is 35 million, therefore, we can conclude that management is able to create value for the shareholders. And this is consistent with ROIC. No? ROIC sabi, value creation. MVA then, value creation. Okay? Okay, pause lang a few seconds. Clear so far, guys, itong market value added? Kindly chat, please, kung yes or no. Sorry, guys, I'm medyo hinahar ko na a bit to, no? Kasi kailangan natin matapos tong Last, no? Yung EVA. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your feedback, guys. Okay. Now, last, guys, EVA, economic value added. Okay. Now, this is a very important measure. This was developed by Stern and Stewart. No? Isang company to. You may check the internet, guys, kung ano tong Stern and Stewart na to. They were the ones that proposed yung itong economic value added or EVA. Okay, may kwento na naman to, no? Okay, balikan natin yung kwento na to as usual. And I'm using this story kasi, guys, mas maintindihan natin yung measure na to if we know the story behind the measure. Okay, once again, guys, January 1, 2020, management was provided 1516.4 ng TOC, di ba? TOC beginning yan. Okay? So si management binigyan sila ng 1.516 billion pesos. Okay, question. Ito ba free ba yan? Sino nag-provide yan? Investors, no? Investors ang nag-provide ng amount na yan. Now, this amount, guys, if we're asked, is this funding free? The answer to that question is, this fund is not free. Hindi free yan. Anong ibig sabihin nun? The investors would require a return for this. Okay? So hindi libre yung paggamit ng capital na yan. And this is where yung measure na economic value added is more superior than yung measure ng mga accounting profits, no? Kasi sa accounting profits, hindi natin kino-consider na yung capital na binigay sa management ay may cost, no? Okay. Meron tayong tinatawag na opportunity cost as far as the investors is concerned. What does that mean? The investors could have placed their money elsewhere and earned, no? Rather than putting it in advanced technologies. So, ang mangyari, guys, ang gagawin natin, we will charge management, no, for the use of this capital. So we're going to call it charge on capital. I-charge natin si management, no? Kasi hindi naman free yung capital na yan, eh. So ano yung charge na gagamitin natin? Parang kailangan i-account na management yung gamit na yan. And we're going to charge the management with yung pinaka-logical, yung weighted average cost of capital. Okay? In other words, guys, okay, sasabihin natin sa management, ito yung capital, 1516.4. Pero may interest yan, ha? May interest yan kasi hindi free yung anong yan, eh. Yung paggamit ng capital na yan. Okay, so sige, computan natin, guys, kasi in the interest of time. Okay. So management was able to generate NOPAT nila. Magkano yung NOPAT? NOPAT for 2020 was 198.7. Okay? So ito yung NOPAT natin, no? Okay. Now question. Magkano yung capital na binigay sa atin? How much capital was provided? How much capital was provided to management? Okay, alam natin yan yung beginning capital, no? Okay. So, baguhin natin to. Insert. Isa pang insert. Okay. So, TOC beginning, copy ko na to para mas mabilis. Control-C. Magkano yung binigay na capital sa simula? 1516. Yan, ito. Okay. Tapos guys, sabi natin, i-charge yung management sa paggamit ng capital. Magkano i-charge sa management? 8%. Okay, therefore, itatawagin natin itong charge on capital. In other words, since hindi libre yung paggamit ng capital, sasabihin natin sa management, oops, ito yung charge on capital nyo, ha? Parang interest on the use of capital. Therefore, guys, ang talagang value nung na-create nila is simply equal to yung NOPAT minus yung charge sa capital. Yan. So this is what we now call the economic value added. Okay? EVA to. So was value created for the shareholders? Yes. if the EVA is positive, if it's greater than 0, then nakapag-create ng value yung yung shareholders. Okay, and that's just this last one, guys. EVA. Another way to compute for EVA is ROIC. No? Okay, so we'll end in this ROIC, WACC, and then. So we're presenting here two ways in order to compute for EVA. One is through the NOPAT. Another one is through the ROIC. Magkano ba yung ROIC? How much was ROIC, guys? Na-compute natin yan, di ba? ROIC is equal to 13.1%. Okay. Magkano yung WACC? The weighted average cost of capital is 8%. Okay. So dito pa lang, guys, alam natin na alam natin na nag-create na siya ng value. Kasi mas malaki yung yung ROIC kaysa sa WACC. So what's the difference between the WACC and ROIC? 13.1 minus 8. So that's 5.1%. Magkano yung beginning capital? 1516.4. Therefore, our EVA is, in other words, guys, nag-earn tayo ng 5.1% dun sa capital na 1516. There you go. Okay, tama-tama, guys. It's already time. Okay, so ayusin ko lang yung margin nito, guys. Yung dito, baba. Tapos dito, baba. Okay. There, guys. So what's value created, guys, for management? Yes. Value was created for shareholders kasi yung EVA natin was greater than 0. Okay. So it's already time, guys. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm sorry I had to rush this last discussion kasi kailangan natin pareho tayo dun sa ibang sections. I'll post this video, guys, and then please review. Okay, if you have any questions, please feel free to chat me, PM me, guys, for clarification, and I'm going to gladly answer. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I'll stop recording.